Today on the show, I'm talking to Marc Rebillet. His sets are all improv. Well, 95% improv. On a technical level, what he's doing is really impressive, but what he brings to his show is completely over the top, insane. He definitely challenges you to party. Like, you're going to have to reckon with what he's bringing, and if you buy into it, you're going to have fun. My conversation with Marc happened November 30th, 2020. Well, thanks a lot for joining me on my wacky project here.
Dude, my pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, no, it's great, man. Your stuff is mind-blowing on several levels.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's definitely bizarre, that's for sure.
Like, I think like most of probably your newer fans, like I discovered you like through friends of mine saying, "Hey man, check this out," like in March.
Oh, wow, yeah.
When there was nothing else to do but like entertain each other with Link Wars. And I can't remember what I saw yours first. I think it was you playing at the cafe in Dallas. Like someone's where it's like starts off like people are just kind of kicking it and not really they're just there, and then by the end of it it's like a giant party.
Right. Dude, those were honestly some of my very favorite gigs because those were my first gigs. I spent like about a year in Dallas sort of cutting my teeth and just playing a bunch of restaurant like lunchtime gigs for people who were not there to see me.
Right.
And it was just a really beautiful thing. It was this sort of hyper accelerated way of figuring out crowd work and how to engage people and like keep people interested in the show. In just a really strange way, but yeah, it's I had a wonderful captive audience there.
It's tough now. There's such pressure to promote yourself these days that people don't take the time just to suck and to get better and improve, and like so that you can present something that's kind of like a fully formed, thing. And
yeah, that's a good point.
You need that time. You're always growing. You're always developing. You're always, pushing yourself.
For sure.
But like when you're starting to get going, I think people now are in, I don't know, maybe I'm just kind of romanticizing like the period of time where I came up like playing in punk bands and like legitimately sucking. That I was allowed to develop that on my own before I faced any sort of worldwide scrutiny, before I faced any comment section, I could feel good about like what I had to offer first.
Dude, I don't know. I do think there's something very important about that. And I would wager, well, I don't know, maybe this isn't true. I sort of get the feeling that anyone who finds any form of success in entertainment has sort of gone through that. But I suppose like what you're saying with the internet age being what it is, I don't know if that's necessarily true.
Like you have kids seeing other kids who are doing it, Right. And so and it's inspiring on one level because they think that, oh shoot, I can just, I can play my Taylor Swift cover acoustic on my bed and post that up and like, because that's what I'm seeing other people do. Like, and yes, they can do that, but it's a little bit. There's only room for so many of those to really kind of break through.
And the other thing is like you can be very talented and post your acoustic Taylor Swift cover and you can do that on TikTok and get like millions of views and be validated as a performer. But then the problem is like, it's like that needs to somehow translate into some sort of business model. It needs to evolve. And I don't know, generally a lot of the money now is coming from live performance. There's just, as far as I know, I'm not really a part of the traditional record model, but like there's just not an enormous amount of money in records anymore like there used to be.
Yeah, I mean, that aspect of what you're doing is fascinating to me too. But like, I think like before it translates into a business model, I think it has to translate into fans of you, not necessarily fans of your Taylor Swift TikTok cover, because there's a difference. Like it's kind of
true.
It's kind of like pop artists that come out of nowhere with a really super catchy song for the summer. It's like rad.
Yeah.
But what's next? Like when that's like how you make your statement, it's kind of like now you live and die on how successful your next thing is. I mean, like heard anything from Psy lately? Like, yeah, right. It's kind of
exactly.
It's sort of like how are you going to cross over to personal connection with people? I think that's the trickiest thing that a lot of this self-promotion culture with the no barrier to entry, like YouTube, SoundCloud, whatever. That's kind of the trick there is like, yeah, you can make something that just goes off, but so can absolutely everybody else because we all have the same tools. So it's tricky. Like how do you make a personal connection where people are relating to you in some way?
Yeah, that's a very, man, and I'm thinking about this. It makes me realize that I continue to have an enormous amount. Well, I suppose it hasn't been quite as pressing or intense recently, but it goes through phases where I have these big waves of like sort of abstract anxiety regarding my staying power and whether or not people will continue to be interested in what it is I'm doing and whether or not I'll be able to continue to create interesting things. And, you could potentially argue that I've maybe crossed some sort of barrier in terms of getting people to be fans of me and therefore sort of being lucky enough to have somewhat of a sort of built-in staying power, but like it's still based on you continuing to do interesting shit.
Yeah. I think you're going to be okay, but I think there's some other people out there that might be struggling,
Yeah, maybe.
It is sort of interesting because I think like you tapped into something just by the nature of what you were doing anyway, and a problem that I think a lot of more established people have been struggling with lately is like how do you create value? How do you create a sense of value, a sense of experience streaming, like online? And I think the fact that when people are watching you work, it's like this is just what you're seeing right now is the first time anybody's hearing this. Yeah. And that creates a value. Like it's like you're watching a high wire act.
I suppose so.
And that's valuable. It's like that's something like it makes you feel just the fact that that's happening and that's the way that what you're seeing is being created. It makes an intrinsic value that I think people will overlook production flubs or streaming issues or like wackiness there or anything just because like they feel like they're there. It's like when you're watching like a stream of a festival. Right. And you're thinking to yourself, it's kind of exciting, it's like you feel like, oh man, I'm tuned into like this is happening now, and I get to see it,
right?
As opposed to like what a lot of people are doing, like band versus camera performance, stuff like it feels cold, in some way, and I think
it does feel cold.
Like we've been struggling with like how do we incorporate some sort of sense of like. Because this is what we're doing for a while now, like,
yeah, man.
How do we create that sense of like shared experience? And I think like this is a really long way to say that what you were doing anyway sort of tapped right into like solving that problem with a lot of improv
well, thanks,
work.
Man. Yeah, I mean, like it obviously, it was completely unintentional, but it just so happened that what I had been doing online with the streams for the last, which I've been doing for, at least a couple years now, but probably more now, a few years. It just happens to fit the Corona model really, really, really well. And you could even say, I don't know, like, there's this thing that I think about, which is my production value with these things from my apartment has always been very low. And it's not necessarily intentional. It's just because I'm lazy and I don't really have the will or the desire to step up my production value very much outside of like changing the angle every once in a while. But I do think that that's something that people like to sort of piggyback off what you were saying, that people sort of connect to, in that there is the illusion, and I suppose it's not really an illusion, but that I'm just a dude in his apartment, like making shit up. And that's somewhat relatable, I suppose, to a lot of people who are in their apartments trying to make shit,
Yeah.
But again, that was never a strategy for me. It just sort of unfolded that way. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, but like, how many years have you spent like playing piano, and and how many years have you spent like the performance aspect of looping and beyond what a musical instrument can do, but like hitting buttons that make things happen. Like that's a musicianship that's like, you have to figure that out completely on your own, and it's totally outside of musical instrument technicality.
True. Right.
And it's something that I think, like, I can tell you spent a long time doing that, because it's like something like a passage will go by and then you realize, oh wait, while he was making that up, he also was recording it so that he can have a harmony on it for the next 4 bars.
Right. Right.
Like, oh, that happened. It's it's like, oh yeah, it's pretty wild. And I can tell that you spent thousands of hours, like, figuring that out.
I definitely have. Yes, that's true. That's true. So, but it's like, it really is something that you can buy a couple of pieces of equipment and get rolling pretty much, if you know how to, like, I don't necessarily like to promote doing this, but if you're starting out and you know how to bootleg software, and you can really buy a couple pieces of hardware and like get playing. Yeah. But yeah, you really do need to have enough of an innate curiosity about it to just do it ad nauseum until it starts to sound reasonable, I think. I
have 2 Boss RC50s that are
those are the foot ones, the foot pedals?
They're the foot ones. They're pretty gnarly. Like, there was like one song that we do that I have, like, I wanted to loop a guitar and I wanted to loop vocals. And with exactly what I wanted to do, there was no way I could get away with just having one of them. Like, I tried assigning inputs and outputs so that guitar would be on one and my mic would be on the other.
Oh, okay.
But so it's like $1,000 gag for one song. It's like, I mean, they're probably like $200 now, but at the time it was $1,000 gag.
Right.
But when it works, it's great. But when it doesn't work, it's kind of like, I mean, I haven't hooked up with like a MIDI cable, and I hope to God they're talking to each other.
Dude, I had that issue last month. I went to I finally understand that pain. I've never really had to deal with, the only sort of MIDI nightmare I've had to deal with is just sort of getting, like, it's just work for me to get anything more than like instruments to be represented on my MIDI keyboard, like anything, and to get like drum samples to correspond to my drum pads. Outside of that, right. I absolutely hate dealing with MIDI. I'm just now getting to the point where I'm tweaking my Hammond like B3 and C3 virtual instruments to have the drawbars
like functional,
correspond.
Yeah,
correspond to those little levels on the keyboard. But when I was in LA last month, I was sort of meeting a bunch of people and, who I'd sort of been talking to on the internet for a while and meeting up and making music with some people. And one of those people was Reggie Watts, who I just love so much.
Oh, no way.
And yeah, dude, he is
the master.
He's the master. He's the OG. He's just the improv legend. And so we were hanging out, and he had his looping set up, and he has an electro harmonics machine that he loops with now, as well as his Line 6. And then I had mine, and we were trying to connect, I believe, the electro harmonics to my RC505 and get them talking to each other, at least get them on the same click,
How old is the RC505?
It's a few years old at this point. I want to say it's like 5 or 6 years old.
That's newer than the 50, right? The foot pedal one, probably?
Yes. Yeah, I think it's their newest looping product.
You were trying to get like him, like he would open and close a loop and then have it be like the same length as what, like, communicate, open and close this that I've created to your setup.
Not even that complicated. It was like we wanted it to, if he made a loop or if I made a loop, and that loop then like snapped the tempo to like 115, then his electro harmonics would be at 115, and then we could both operate on that same click, on that,
Right.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't necessarily matter if he opened and closed it not on the beat. It would know that it would loop it. Like if it was like a quarter note off, doesn't matter because it's going to close a quarter note off, and then it would line up when it plays ahead. Yeah, that makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah, like I don't ever use a click track. There's no I'm not familiar with that part of the system. There is a whole click track system on the RC505, but I don't know anything about it.
Right.
And so we just went back and forth on it for like for just like an hour and a half trying to figure it out.
Yeah, because
and eventually we were just like, you know what? I'm just gonna play some shit and then you sing and we'll just do it like that. Yeah.
Yeah, because like if you open and close a loop and someone else is trying to open and close a loop and you're not dead on, you're gonna know it's gonna sound like that clip of Smash Mouth All Star where everyone's at different tempos.
Yes.
It's gonna sound like It's gonna sound like Reggie and Mark shred.
Scoot further and further away from center.
I mean, it can be beautifully horrible, but I know that's not probably what you're going for.
Now that you mentioned that, I wish we would have just at least played with that. That would have been fun.
Just see what just pretend like that's what you meant to do.
Out of control. Yeah. Yeah, you can do some sort of like feedback thing.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But that's suffice it to say that my whole setup is really like at its core is very, very, very simple. It's very simple, and I don't want it to be really much more complicated than this, at least not for this show. Just because it's that other stuff really tends to get in the way for me. Like it's like people like Beardy Man. I don't know if you've seen him do his stuff. He's amazing. He's this UK loop guy who's been doing it forever, but he's extraordinarily technically gifted in that, he's created this whole bank. It's like he's on the Enterprise like bridge. I mean, he just has he's surrounded by machines, and there's he can tweak and do everything on the fly right there. But it's just way too much for me. I don't know how to, I need the shit to be out of the way on a table. That's it pretty much. So that I can just perform,
Yeah. Because there's always a trade-off there. It's like, yes, you can tweak anything you want as you're performing it, but then it's kind of like, you're sort of approaching like Crystal Method. You're sort of approaching like square pusher, like dude in front of a rack mount thing. You see his hands come up every once in a while.
I mean, it's sort of its own sort of strange, futuristic performance, I suppose. And there's an appeal to that for sure. It's just not something that I'm good at.
Well, also you've kind of landed on something that it's equally a strong device to take stuff away. you can get as much of an effect of taking things away as you can, like tweaking more. Sometimes that's a whole lot more is to take stuff away. Like music goes away for like the last 2 bars before like the downbeat comes in again and everything, and some new part comes in. Like that's,
Right.
I think people are constantly adjusting their expectations from what they get. So if you give them something that is, all this like if you were to, here's a guy in a robe, and all of a sudden like a roads thing happens and nothing else is happening. It's like anything you do beyond that is like impact. And also taking stuff away from that gives you more room to come back with anything, and that's impact.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it's just like, it's very simplistic song editing, just sort of like simple, I guess. Yeah, it's just very basic songwriting mechanics. It's like,
Yeah, well, it's like pop,
just like
pop
you say.
stuff. Like you're mimicking things that would be like finished production mix moves by like,
removing
an
element,
coming in with even just something little like that, or like letting your background vocals cruise for a while, but with just the beat, and then like that gives you a chance to talk to people, like it's like your style of it's kind of like geared so great for performance. Dude, I watched your Paradiso gig.
Oh shit.
That made me bummed out because like I missed that place.
Dude,
isn't that the wildest? That's one of my favorite clubs anywhere in the world.
It is easily one of my favorite venues on the planet. Yeah, it's so great. I mean, you're just like surrounded by the 3-tiered balcony. Oh my God, man.
Yeah.
When's the last time you played?
December 12th of last year.
Oh shit, dude. We were not. Last year.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. We were probably not that far off from each other. I think we were like about a month off.
I think you were about to go to like New Zealand, Australia, probably at the same time we were before
March.
Yeah, in March
12th.
Were you going to do festivals down there? Maybe we would have been at the same gigs.
I was doing it. No, it was just a tour. Just a headline tour. Yeah, that really bummed me out because I haven't played Australia, New Zealand yet. I was really looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite places.
Oh yeah.
Like, ask me what I like about a place, and I'm going to tell you it's one of my favorite places now because I haven't been anywhere in a year. It's like, oh, I love that place. It's my favorite.
Yeah, but I have heard from multiple people that Australia, New Zealand is like one of the most fun markets to play.
Yeah, it really is. I think it's just like just people are cool there. It's sort of bizarrely like North American. Like you're so far away from home, but it's bizarrely North American.
Oh yeah.
It's like things kind of feel familiar. Sort of.
Oh, interesting.
It's like bizarro UK. Like things are sort of feels like the UK, but then every once in a while, like, no, this is not even close.
Right. Man, the UK, another one of my very favorite markets.
One of my favorite places.
God damn, dude. One of my favorites.
That's my favorite.
Dude, but really though, I mean, like the energy there, they just love shows.
Yeah.
Like they just fucking love shows.
Everywhere. I wonder if it's because of like dance culture, like electronic music dance culture. It was so much more of like a mainstream thing in Europe in general that it seemed like our experience, like when we first got to Europe and started playing, it seemed like people already made up their minds they're going to have a good time when they left the house. As opposed to like in North America where it's kind of, you gotta win over the cool police a little bit.
Dude,
a little bit. But people are just ready. They're ready over there. Like
yes, they're fully amped, like fully ready to have a good time. And like there are definitely, I don't know, I think there's a handful of, but what I do notice sometimes is that like it sometimes is like this and sometimes not, but in like major markets like if you're doing a New York or LA or like a Toronto or something, like sometimes they are fucking pumped. But then sometimes I feel like I'm playing to an art gallery. Let's go, because people in major markets tend to be really spoiled, you know, and like it's like, oh, another night, another show. And so there's not that, the stakes aren't as high, I suppose.
Yeah.
Some
of the most rowdy shows we've ever played have been like seated theaters in small towns where,
oh, wow.
where it doesn't matter. People just go off because like, because it, you know, they're stoked
because that's the event.
Yeah.
That's
Wednesday night, stoked. Dude, going off.
Tampa, like Ybor City. I've played a handful of times now, and it's like one of my favorite places to play on planet Earth because I don't know why, but there's something about the energy there, and they just cannot contain themselves. It's like the wildest, most insane. You just, you know, I don't know. Like you say, it's a roll of the dice. Like you just have to sort of. I get on stage with the full intention that they are not sold and need to be sold.
Yeah.
That's sort of my mentality, which is, I don't know if that's healthy, but it helps.
No, I think that totally, that's probably what everybody should do, really.
Yeah.
Like, don't believe it. If they're going off the first song, don't believe it. They need it. They need to be sold. Sell them. Sell the back. Sell the back of the room.
Yeah, it's like they don't even know if maybe were the tickets too much. I don't even know if they want to be here. Fuck.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I
sort of go out with that.
I always try to like just kind of go up totally clean, you know, because like during the day you might be in Amsterdam and you walk around and you're thinking like this rules. And you're kicking it.
Yeah.
You're kicking it backstage at Paradiso by the river, and you're thinking like, "My God, my life is wonderful." And then you're just pumped. You're just pumped to go on. And then like the littlest thing that chips away at that when you go on can make the show suck. So I try my best to like, if it was a great day, if the day sucked, if it was like, you know, whatever, I try to go up just zeroed out, and then and then just kind of let it unfold.
Oh, that's nice.
And that helps a little bit because like our material we've played hundreds of times, you know, like we've played
right.
thousands of times. I'd tens of thousands of times maybe at this point.
I would imagine, yeah.
So
dude.
like that's a way to kind of let it breathe, let it be like let the material that you've performed a lot have a chance at being something, at a new experience, making connections with it.
Right.
But I like the idea of going up there and like just. They don't know yet. They need it. You got to bring it. Like that's sort of a. Yeah, I wish I had a little bit more of that.
I mean, it's a very stressful way to go out on stage. Undoubtedly, you know, I have not yet had the pleasure of like going out on stage and having a set list at all. Yeah,
so
bizarre.
like there's no like people just know that when they come see you play. It's going to be an adventure for everybody. And like, that's
including me. Yeah.
So, I mean, what are you going to do? What, as you get more and more fans, like people are going to, do you get people saying like, hey man, whoever's worked that ass for daddy? What happened?
Yeah. And you know, the show has now become like at the very end, I'll do a couple of those. You know, I basically say goodnight, and then I say that, you know, the whole show has been improvised, but you know that at the end, you know, I like to do a couple that maybe you've heard.
So that's cool.
I have them ask me, you know, I have them sort of yell out whatever they want to do, and depending on the market, it's different. But yeah, it's nice. It's because I sort of, you know, I did a couple of drive-in tours during the pandemic, and there were. You know, like you say, you found out about me in March, and I think a lot of other people did too, around like pandemic time.
Yeah.
And so when I was on this tour, the things that people were yelling out that they wanted me to play, and this made me very happy, were different songs than the ones they wanted me to play a year ago on tour, let's say. And so, but the other side to that was that these were songs that I had either made up on a stream or had made up wherever, and I had never made them again. So I've listened to them. I know how they go, but I sort of had to figure out on stage how to make the song again. So that's its own little challenge.
As long as you got close, I think people would dig it though. That's what I've discovered. Like when we make records, it's like we don't really think about the gig. It's sort of exactly the opposite. It's like, what can we do to make this to get the clearest picture of what we're imagining?
Right.
And
right.
I don't really care if we can recreate it, because it's all about like making the record, making the song. And then later on, you get to the point where, okay, how are we going to play this? Okay.
You have to like reverse engineer.
You got to revert. Yeah, that's sort of how our process goes. It's like
that's interesting.
There's like a demo, and that could have any number. I mean, now our demos are a little bit more advanced because we have our studio here, but
Right.
But then there's the demo, and then there's like the band editing process where we kind of add to it, and that might include like a producer that we're working with too. And then there's the record made band meeting of how are we going to do this live now. Right. And sometimes the thing that we've come up with is like, there's no way we can recreate this. So how could we present it? So could we take it the opposite direction? Is this something that's now a song I do acoustic alone? So like, I think as long
that's
as
cool.
Or as long as you get close, I think people who are fans of the song will be stoked. They're not gonna be, hey man, where was the orchestra in that, dude?
Yeah.
Dude, where were the 4 drum kit sounds that you had? This show sucks. They're gonna cut you some slack. It's like, again, people are gonna take it how it's served. Like,
yeah,
if you start off,
yeah, and that. You know what? You're absolutely right about that. Like that is, I have found the same thing. Well, in maybe a slightly more abstract way, but that like, I mean, I don't know if you feel this way, but like, there's many shows that I play that I get off stage and I'm like, that sucked. That just sucked. Like that just sucked. And then I will get this flood of messages, or like there's people coming backstage or whatever, and they have this completely different perspective of how the show went. Like, amazing show, incredible show, like highlight show kind of shit.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, where was I? Where the hell was I for that part? That sucked.
Well, because
I don't know. It's
in
like
your head, you're setting up. You're in your head as it's going by. You have these expectations for what you're doing, and
right.
You're unable to. There's no way you can enjoy your gig as a listener and have that same experience.
So true.
So like, you don't know what they don't know what you know. And you don't,
right.
you definitely, there's no way you could know what they know. Like, I will never be able to hear it. We could do a sound check and record the sound check. I could walk out into the audience and hear it played back to me, but that's not real. That's not what it's really like. Like, I'll never know. Yeah. I'll never know what it's like to be in the audience while I'm playing. And you gotta cut yourself slack in that like it is healthy to have like those standards for yourself and like be pushing yourself and try to hit them, but like, that happens all the time. That can happen like if you're performing with other people too. Like, our drummer will be like, dude, what happened? I'm like, what do you mean what happened? Excellence happened. He's like, no.
God, that's so it really feels like, yeah, you have to make peace with that fact, because it can absolutely drive you crazy if you don't. Like, just this mentality of like, it's just like you at some point, it's like you say, you just have to trust that it's going all right. It's like you have to do everything that you can to have a good show, but ultimately it's going to be what it is. You have to trust it.
There's like there's always some other aspect. I mean, if you're looking for stuff that's going wrong, you're gonna find it.
You're
going to find it. Like, 100%. And what does that do? I mean, yeah, you got to keep a little bit of that going on, but like there's a lot of it you have to let go of, like.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, it's a really bizarre thing being up there. It's still like a relatively new thing for me, It's only been a few years.
Like, and with all improv, I imagine that's like a completely different layer too, because like you have to balance the letting go of, okay, I just said that. What's next?
Yeah.
Like driving that, like steering that, but letting go to let it happen, combined with like, how is this playing? What's the audience doing to that? How'd that go over? I just said that.
Yeah.
Man. I'm going to put a harmony on that.
It's a very high stress way to play a set. There's no doubt about it. It's high stress.
Yeah.
But like it also, there's like this extraordinary euphoria that can occur on the rare occasions when I hit on some passage or something that I like really genuinely like. It doesn't happen super often. I do things that I enjoy or that I think are fun, but there's the occasionally, if I'm playing a show and I enter into some thing, whether it's like a chorus or a harmony or anything that I think is like really special, and if I think it's special and then the audience also thinks it's special, this alchemy, this like, it's like better than any drug I've ever done. It's just the most insane sensation. And you just ride that out. Not for too long though. Then you got to cut it and move on to the next shit,
Like any device, the longer that you employ it, the less effective it's going to be.
100%.
So take stuff away.
Yes.
Take stuff away.
Yes. Dude, that's such a huge part of it. That's the, there's a lot of streamers and internet-based musicians that do improv stuff and sort of jammy kind of stuff. And there's just this, for me, it's a cardinal sin of like, you're riding a fucking groove for way too goddamn long. Like just, you're enjoying this so much more than the people who are listening to you are enjoying this. It's like,
right. You can shred.
So
we get it. We get it. I got it 3 minutes ago. That was.
Yeah, we got it. Cool.
Bravo.
Sounds cool.
What? There's people here. There's people here.
Yes. Yeah. Exercise restraint. You have to edit.
I don't follow a lot of people just like streaming musician people, but
yeah, I don't either.
I wouldn't put you in that category because you're definitely like cutting your teeth and playing gigs, and like that teaches you a whole lot of other things, that I don't think you get, like that. Like, there's a limit to this.
Right.
There's a limit to this. Like,
there's a limit to people's patience.
There's a limit to people's patience, and there's also a limit to like the gag of it. Like listening to just like the recordings that you've put up like on Spotify or whatever. It's like there's not you're not employing the loop as a gag. It's like just you don't even know if you weren't listening for it, you wouldn't know it's there. Like if you weren't watching, if you weren't watching, I mean, I know what you're doing, so I can hear it. But like,
right.
But like, if you were just listening to it, like I think not many people would pick up on the fact of what you're doing is what you're doing.
Well, that's really, really lovely to hear. I appreciate that. That's like, I'm definitely trying to make it sound like that. And I do wonder if there are people who, because I have at least for me, a relatively strong listenership on Spotify. And I wonder if there are people who are just listening to me on Spotify and who just think I'm just like just a musician, just a standard, studio dude. I can't imagine, because the quality is not nearly up to snuff, and like I'm not doing a lot of stuff with dynamics or shifts in tempo. I'm not doing anything with that. So I can't imagine. But a lot of people's ears aren't attuned like that. So I don't know.
I think when there's a video element to something, that people are way more inclined to share it and spread it around.
Sure.
It does.
Yeah.
It could be like the lamest video element ever, But
Right.
as long as there's something, like people are way more likely to share that than they are like a just purely audio link.
Yeah,
But
that's true.
But like you can't just drive around watching YouTube. You know, so like there's definitely places where you can't just watch videos. So I think there's definitely people out there that probably just listen to like your recordings only, you know?
Yeah, that's weird to think about because they're all from videos. They're all they're all from videos.
Yeah. So anytime you're doing something, you're recording, basically, or
pretty well. Yeah, pretty much. Unless I'm, unless I'm playing on my piano or
right. But if it's a performance, either streaming or in person, like you're documenting it.
Yes, more often than not, online for sure. But
somebody is if it's online.
Right,
if you're not, someone else is.
Right. Yes, they've got me covered. Yeah, but the live performances I have had to, I have just a very low budget, low production value way of capturing those shows. And it used to be that I would just live stream the restaurant shows. And then, once I started touring, I think I started on the last Europe tour. I think I started bringing around a GoPro and I found one of these. They're like a folding mount for photography lights. And it's not like a tripod. Tripods are bulkier. These things are like the thin metal.
Yeah.
So they can fold up real thin, and they would fit in my backpack. So I could take that, put it up behind me on stage, mount the GoPro to it, and then I have a Zoom field recorder that I run out of my out of one of the instruments outs on the RC505, and it has two field mics mounted to it.
Right.
So I can record room sound as well as me. Right. With no board. I don't need to count on house doing that. And so it's all internal, which is kind of nice.
What you're feeding the house is probably just a stereo track, right?
Yeah, that's it. L&R. That's literally my sound check is the easiest thing there is. I walk in, I set my shit up, and then I run 2/4 inches out to house, and that's it.
You're like the metal guy who's hungover sound guy dream.
Yeah,
like, I don't gotta do anything. All right.
Yeah, they always give me these sound check windows of like an hour and a half, and we have to say now we're like, dude, it takes 10 minutes.
Right.
It's not a big deal.
When you nail one of those moments where you find yourself really, really transcending something, really transcending the experience and creating something that's like, whoa, wow, that's great. I mean, do you ever have the desire to go back and mine that for like a studio recording, or like to develop into like? I mean, because how much going forward from here do you think is gonna stay totally improv, and how much are you gonna maybe like go back and?
Not for too much longer. I mean, I could see myself doing this show, every once in a while in the future, just because I enjoy doing it. It's a really fun way to perform. But I mean, it's something that has a limitation insofar as the extent to which I'm willing to evolve it. I just don't have the will to make it any more complex than it already is. And so that sort of means that there's really only a certain amount of things that I can do with this. And I see myself starting to hit that, to reach that limit in many ways. The thing that does give me more breathing room and sort of gives me the headspace for new ideas within this format is changing the instruments up. And this is something that I've now been doing out of necessity because I just played a drive-in show in San Francisco at last month for Halloween, and the night before I came back here to New York, all of my stuff was stolen out of our rental car. My tour manager stuff, my stuff, everything. The keyboard, the looper, the laptop, tour manager's laptop, everything.
You had your stuff ripped off from the band van, dude. You're like 10 times more legit now.
I hear it's a rite of passage.
Yeah, you got your punk rock pass now, dude. You're in.
Yeah, man. I mean, you know, it sucks, but at the same time, and the other shitty thing about it was that, like, the backup that I had of my show was like a year old and basically fucked. Like, it didn't play nice with Catalina, with macOS Catalina. So I have now had to start from scratch and rebuild the whole show, including finding all of the instruments again, putting together new drum kits, everything. And it's in doing this over the last 2 weeks, I've realized just how much work I put into amassing these instruments over the course of, 4 or 5 years. And so I've been trying to fast forward that process and have been doing pretty well. But anyway, this is a very long-winded way of saying that now that I have this new bank of stuff, just these new sounds and these weird new drum kits, and forcing myself to sort of scour the internet for new things, and also being lucky enough to have like a little bit of money now that I can like actually pay for like plugins and stuff, rather than like search fucking gear sluts for like weird bootleg links and shit. But yeah, it has reinvigorated this. It just helps me come up with different things. If I play something and it sounds different, it makes me think of a different idea musically, structurally, whatever it might be. So I still find life there, but there is a point of death for this, I'm sure. And as soon as I do another project, which I'm looking at doing with a number of people, just sort of, collaborating on some sort of project, or do my own album or whatever it might be. Once I pass that goalpost, then I'll probably tour that in a more traditional way, or a non-traditional way, but either way, it'll be, this thing, it only has legs for so much longer.
Well, I'm absolutely confident that you'll be okay.
Oh, thank you.
I think you've done I think you've done the real work of like building actual connection with people, and I think that's going to translate. And you're playing gigs, so that's like there's nothing that does that more than like actually getting in front of people, I think.
God, it's so true. It's so true. There was a meteoric leap in like fan loyalty or whatever, or even just building a fan base as soon as I got out on the road and started playing shows.
Yeah.
Like crazy.
Yeah. I think the worst thing that could have happened to us is our first record would have just blown up out of nowhere.
Oh.
Like without actually doing the work of getting in front of people, like for a long time.
How long was that process for you? That like,
well, for us, it was like we started in like 94, and it wasn't until maybe 2001 that it really went off.
Oh, right.
So
wow.
God
damn.
We spent a lot of time playing for nobody and sleeping on floors.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
There's such a beautiful thing. And there's something that I think about with that. Like, I certainly think about that sort of hustle period of time very romantically.
Yeah.
But I wonder if I only think about it romantically because I've had the privilege to like make it beyond that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's romantic now because like you're not there.
I remember being pretty fucking miserable a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After a gig and you're looking at the converted German Schlachthofhaus that's like the concrete floor drain. I'm going to take a shower in this now, and it's going to be cold.
It's cold. Oh, God, cold
This is my
showers.
life now. I'm going to take a shower. Yeah.
This is fucking $20 in the tip jar.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
It's fun now. I can laugh
fun
now.
Job.
But
I know. I think it's important to realize that I think it's only charming because we've had some sort of success.
yeah. Well, you
It's
can appreciate it
yeah.
too. Like, I think that's a huge deal of why we've been together for so long, is because not only we had that time to develop and play bad shows in uncomfortable, less than rad situations, but like
Yeah.
in getting more than that, you appreciate the more. And I think that's huge.
Big
You know?
time. That kind of goes back to what you were saying at first, is like, if some of these, because, if we go back, like with the very first thing we talked about was like, like these sort of SoundCloud, TikTok born musicians that might garner these insane listens or views and then immediately get catapulted to like do some sort of crazy opening tour or something, or, they're not ready for that. They don't know how to perform.
No.
They haven't they don't know that they're just not ready for that. They could they'll be able to get up there and fart it out, with a DJ or something.
Yeah.
But it's just, you lose the arc. You lose the beautiful organic arc of like being a piece of shit and then, trying desperately to polish that into something.
It's definitely
It also sounds like I'm good old daysing it. Where like I'm,
remember back in 2016, Mark?
Yeah, when we had to work for it. Yeah.
Oh man, that was rough.
It sounds like, I don't want to be that. I don't want to do that. I also don't want to make it seem like there's no other way, because it's not my experience. Maybe it's perfectly doable. I don't know.
Well, thank you so much for hanging out and talking with me today, Mark. I really,
dude,
I
Jim, it
appreciate
was such a pleasure.
It's like
Yes.
your whole presentation is fascinating, and it's and challenging, and it's a whole lot of fun.
Oh, well, thank you so much, man. I love what you do, and dude, it's just, it really is. It's just so dope to see musicians like you carry on a career for such a long time. It's like, that gives me such an intense amount of hope. You need to know that.
That's the only reason I'm doing this, dude, is just to show like show other people it's possible to stick with it. It's just unselfish giving right here.
Yes,
it's like,
that's
it's
right.
not about
charity.
me. It's for you guys. Like, I'm just doing this. No, but I appreciate hearing that, man. That's really cool. What he's doing on a technical level is really hard. What he's doing on a musicianship level is really hard. It would take me a real long time to even get close to that because it's so hard. It takes me like half an hour to come up with like half of a guitar solo before I feel good about it. I can't imagine having to do that like in front of people. I don't think many people would come see us play if they watched me just like figure out a guitar solo for half an hour. We would get to that section in the song and everyone else would just kind of keep playing the same 4 bars over and over again while I figured out what I was going to play live. Nah, man. Thanks a lot for hanging out and checking out the show. Stay safe, stay healthy. I'll see you soon.